Suffering with an affordability crisis that's been fueled by higher taxes under these Liberals and inflationary policies that have driven food prices up at the grocery store. He's telling young Canadians they need to make sacrifices. When is he going to deliver on his promise with its...
Mr. Speaker, one thing we know about the Conservatives is that they don't know shame. You know what?
Yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier, investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that, Mr. Speaker.
It is too bad that minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday, because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that has built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
People in Canada know that this government has their back. It's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Now, Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Welcome to the nap. It's the no answer period, where we cover the question period, prefaced by a review of the far left evil that has beset our land and the events that surround it. The nap is a daily show whenever the house sits, so we'll keep doing this daily until the government stops showing up. We're streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and CommieTube, so please like, thumbs up, follow, share, subscribe, and most of all, the chat is up, so please feel free to ask anything. And keep it clean. And if you don't, I don't really care. And don't be abusive. And if you are, again, I don't really care. Comments drive the algorithm up when I'm not driving it down with my forbidden words. Well, it's been quite the week, hasn't it? Last week, Carney gave a rather disparaging speech. Not disparaging. It's just a ridiculous speech. A speech about nothing. What did he spend? Like 45 minutes telling people how miserable their lives are going to be. Yeah. Well, if you've listened to the intro, or if you missed the intro is available on a separate file on our channels. You can hear the underlying where Gerboliev really just repeats exactly how depressing that entire message was. We've had 10 years of economic failure under the Liberals while they have enriched themselves and their friends. And all they offer us is more misery. And that's the week it's been. And the weekend hasn't gotten any better for the Liberals as the economic non-successes continue to pile up here in Canada. Well, let's get on with the show. We cover certain things here every day. We've been also following what's been happening at the ostrich farm out in BC. Let's get to that score there. Had a few issues before the show. Our scoreboard that we use in Parliament decided to crash, and I wasn't able to get it up again, so I'm using a separate score format using text files instead, so we'll see how that pans out. So let's get to the next scene as I do the fade. There we go. All right. Just a blast from the past, shall we?
Just the first step towards taking away guns from everyone. That's never going to happen because here in Canada we have a culture that has grown up with guns and that respects the need.
From today forward, it is no longer legal to buy, sell, or transfer a handgun in Canada. Effective immediately, it is no longer permitted to buy, sell, transport, import, or use military-grade assault weapons in this country.
That was just a reminder that the Liberals are serial liars. So, what's been happening at the ostrich farm? Well, our live feed, I did see one ostrich walking along the back fence, but the reality is, this is what's been happening. They've been culling the herd. They started culling the herd before the court decided, and then the court decided, yes, go ahead and cull the herd. Again, this entire thing is stupid. It just continues to remind us that we have absolutely no property rights in Canada, and following international regulations like this is only going to make things worse for us citizens. I hope the next government decides to decouple us from these international laws and regulations, especially since the Conservatives are responsible for the legislation that led to this disaster. I've brought this up before, Bill S11, that was brought in by the Conservatives, by a Conservative senator that was appointed by Harper back in 2009. And that legislation was debated, adjusted, approved, and then that legislation was achieved royal assent in 2011. And then after that, the CFIA was allowed through that legislation to create its own legislation answerable to nobody. That needs to change. So until that changes, shit like this is still going to keep going on. So, while we're talking about property rights, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, the Justice Center has released a new report titled Canada's Surrender of Sovereignty. New WHO Health Regulations Undermine Canada's Democracy and Charter Freedoms. Authored by Nigel Hanford, a veteran journalist and researcher, the report warns that Canada's acceptance of the World Health Organization's WHO Revised International Health Regulation, IHR, represents a serious erosion of national independence and democratic accountability. Constitutional lawyer Alison Pejovic said, by treating WHO edicts as binding, the federal government has effectively placed Canadian sovereignty on loan to an unelected international body, which we warned they would do a decade ago. Mr. Hannaford agreed, saying Canada's health policies must be made in Canada. No free and democratic nation should be outsourcing its emergency powers to unelected bureaucrats in Geneva. Right, so we have the report. We'll just go straight to the conclusion. Right here. Given Canada's highly disappointing experience with WHO leadership in the past, the Government of Canada's intended acceptance of the WHO revised health regulations is an alarming and inexplicable ceding of sovereignty and undermining of a democracy. Canadians risk suffering devastating consequences should a foreign bureaucrat, the Director General of the WHO, declares a public health emergency of international concern, or now, the even more serious pandemic emergency. It's worth noting that Germany, Austria, Italy, and the Czech Republic, along with the United States, have declined to accept the revised IHR, all citing sovereignty concerns. U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. explained in the American decision in stark terms. The proposed amendments to the international health regulations open the door to the kind of narrative management, propaganda, and censorship we saw during the COVID pandemic. The United States can cooperate with other nations without jeopardizing our civil liberties, without undermining our Constitution, and without ceding away America's treasured sovereignty. Very good statement right there. Now, Canada could have made the same argument, but did not. Right. The Liberals did not. The Liberals brought us into this. Instead, Canada joined the majority of countries in subordinating key elements of its domestic emergency response to an international body headquartered in Geneva, on the other bloody side of the planet, across the pond, telling us what to do here in Canada. Thank you, Liberals. Unfortunately, although the WHO has done praiseworthy work since it was established in 1946, it's demonstrated incompetence during the COVID crisis and subservience to the People's Republic of China together made it an unreliable partner for Canada. Canada's decision to accept an expanded role for the WHO in Canadian public health is inexplicable. The Justice Center recommends that a future government should follow the example of Germany, Austria, Italy, and the Czech Republic and the United States, continue international cooperation while also refusing subordination to the WHO. What can you do? The WHO's revised international health regulations hand over critical decision making to an unelected international body, undermining Canadian sovereignty and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but you can push back. Spread the word, stay informed, share this report with your family, friends, and elected officials. Further subscribe to our emails, blah, 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 and contact your member of parliament and partner with us. So, right here, contact your member of parliament. I can't say this often enough. The more you contact your member of parliament about everything that bugs you, that tells them that their constituents are being bugged by system. If you don't care. They don't know. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter all the protests out there. Doesn't matter what's going on in the news. Doesn't matter if somebody pays for advertisement. Doesn't even matter if there's another party that has a platform and is publishing stuff all the time until you actually send them stuff to their office. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And even then, they'll probably just ignore it anyway, right? Because they're so ideologically compromised that if it doesn't fit their ideological imperative to basically have full control over Canada and tell us what to do every single moment from cradle to grave, they're probably just going to ignore you anyway, because that's how the Liberals have been operating for the past 10 years. Know them, know them for what they do. So that's what I've always said. All right, so we keep up on the digital ID situation over in the UK. And I don't know if you've seen what's been going on in the UK over the weekend. Things just keep getting worse there all the time for the Labour Party. I think Parliament's been dissolved. I'm not even sure. It's just insane. They have had enough everywhere in the UK. They're going crazy up against all the mass immigration trying to replace the population. I talked about this last week. You know, in Ireland, when you have a village of 250 people and then they dump 250 migrants right into that village, you can't tell me that's not trying to replace your population. Are you? And they're all like fighting age males. Like, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And of course, in order to keep everybody shut up in the UK, they're still arresting 30 to 60 people a day for hurty words online. And in order to bring in their full totalitarian control, to go full George Orwell, they're bringing in digital ID that nobody wants. And of course, on the weekend, people have lost their frickin' minds because without the digital ID, and of course, the whole system they rolled out has crapped out on its own. So people can't even get their money. They can't get anything done without the digital ID, and they have lost their nut. I think that's why everything's getting dissolved right now. That's what happens when you have totalitarian a-holes who just want to control everything and lie to you all the time. They created the conditions in order to bring this in while ignoring that you were telling them not to create the conditions. So Clyde here has a short clip he put out today, and I'm going to play you the beginning of it because it,
But speaking of getting in trouble, you walked in the woods when you weren't supposed to walk in the woods.
I did a lot of things I wasn't supposed to do. I'm still fighting about mask mandates. I got a decision last week from the Nova Scotia Court of Appeals because I've been self-representing like a maniac over mask mandates. And you know, it's just impossible. They're saying like, you know, it's legally mandated. I'm like, how could it possibly be? We have a constitution, but they said it hasn't been challenged. You know, there was no charter. Because you have you don't have very long anyway to submit a charter challenge to something like that. So it was like I did put charter challenges in, but they were for my arrests when I got arrested, and then nobody shows up in court because they look at my charter challenge and they go, "Uh-oh, we're going to be in a lot of trouble if we show up in court." And this guy's got this defense here.
So yeah, they just don't show up, and then it.
For the first time, they did not show up, and the judge was like, okay, none of the witnesses showed up, so case dismissed, bang the gavel, and that was it. And then the second time, the Crown contacted me and withdrew the charges 2 days out from the court date. It was all a shakedown.
So you don't get a ruling. They just dismiss the case and you're free to go?
That's right. They just dismiss the case and you're free to go. And so I still pursue these human rights complaints and try to get the Human Rights Commission to take them seriously, because like they're writing their own law, essentially. It's ridiculous. But the lower courts didn't give me, well, the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia didn't give me a favorable decision. The Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission tried to say that because I used political belief, affiliation, and activity. I was like, look, I'm protesting a mandate, and that's a political activity. And they're like, no, it isn't. You don't belong to a political party. And I was like, actually, yes, I do. And no, that is not required under the law, like you say, right?
Yeah.
They put it in their decision letter. Under the act, you have to be a member of a political party. And I was like, no, you don't.
To protest
yes,
something?
I am. Honestly, yes. This is what they're trying to, and they just blow you off, you know. And now the Nova Scotia Court of Appeal says, well, nobody challenged it on charter grounds. And I was like, I did, but you wouldn't hear it because you withdrew all the charges and didn't show up in court.
That's corrupt as hell, dude.
I know. Like, what are you supposed to do? How are you ever supposed to get these mandates reviewed?
So they knew this. They knew initially when they started abusing Canadians with their mandates and their rules and everything, that once it was challenged, that they knew that the way our justice system is set up right now in Canada, so corrupt as it is, by the time you actually get in court, you're just going to get dismissed anyway. Look how this guy was treated. Look how the former premier of Newfoundland, who's actually a signatory on our existing charter that was signed in 1982, who tried to go to the Supreme Court to try to deal with being denied leaving the frickin' island of Newfoundland to get on a ferry because he didn't take the injection, violating his right of movement in Canada. Took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and by the time he got there, he goes, oh, hey, those laws don't apply anymore. They've stopped doing that a couple of years ago, so the event is all moot, so we're not going to rule on it. No, it's not the point. How the hell can you have a charter challenge if it's just denied because the law that abused you was only used for a short time? No, the whole point is you don't get to fucking do it again. All right? You don't get to do it again, abuse Canadians again. We've had enough. Let's move on to our next story.
I didn't move here until late 2021. So by then, like, I was already getting arrested and stuff.
I know that you are just struggling to get by. I know you're just trying to live your life, maybe raising your kids, maybe helping your aging parents, maybe you're a young kid trying to figure out how you're ever going to get a job or somewhere to live. I know that you think most politicians are corrupt and it doesn't matter what you do or say, it's just going to be the way that it is. And most of you don't pay attention to politics because it sounds like but I'm here to tell you that if you don't pay attention and you don't do politics, politics will do you. In fact, politics is doing you right now. And in this video, I'm going to break down for you why this Canada-US situation matters significantly to you and your family and your future. Mark Carney is the Prime Minister of Canada. Doug Ford is the Premier of Ontario. Donald Trump is the President of the United States. He is imposing tariffs on Canada. So Doug Ford decided that he would spend $75 million to run an ad in the United States during the World Series to hopefully convince the American people that Donald Trump is wrong and that he's going to stand up to Donald Trump and say, no way. Now, whether you agree or don't agree with what was in the ad, because there's some controversy around it, because he used Ronald Reagan, who is a very revered politician, his comments around tariffs, it actually doesn't friggin' matter. And the reason it doesn't matter is because of this. The United States of America's GDP, gross domestic product, is approximately $25 to $30 trillion.
And that's the point. That's the point right there. The narcissistic idiots, politicians who only think about themselves, have no empathy whatsoever for their citizens, let alone anybody else they meet, because they think it's all about them. can't wrap their brains around understanding how other people think about Canada before going out there and trying to sell them something that they couldn't care less about. The reason he spent $75 million on that ad, $75 million, Doug Ford, that could have been, better used maybe feeding and homing some people right here in the province instead of wasting it on an ad that you want to play during the Super Bowl. Seriously. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? Americans don't give a shit what's going on up in Canada. They got their own issues to deal with, right? And if you think that is going to convince Trump's base, that are very happy with his performance, by the way, because he's doing exactly what he promised to do during his election, which is to clean up his country from the crazy, the batshit crazy illegal activities that have been happening under the Democrats for so long. I mean, they didn't care about their borders, they didn't care about their language, and they certainly didn't care about their culture. The three things that you need to have a country. So he's cleaning it up. He's kicking out the illegals. He's bringing back law and order. The first thing he did was clean up D.C., Washington, D.C. People are afraid to go out at night, and now they're not. Now they're not getting mugged and shot all the time, which for some reason Democrats just accepted as a normalization of the downside, or sorry, the destruction of their society, just like what's happened in Canada for the past 10 years. Slowly but surely, the Liberals have normalized the destruction of our society where we see nothing but drugged out zombies everywhere, where we can't even get a doctor anymore after 10 years, where we have a Canadian Armed Forces that can't recruit because everything's been bullshitted by diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because nobody wants to join a cultural Marxist organization that doesn't respect them and is blatantly racist, always putting somebody else more equal than yourself because you're the wrong skin color. Yes, we have a racist government in charge. So as she explains here, the United States doesn't care. They couldn't care less. We need the United States. They don't fucking need us, right? 85% of our trade goes down there that we sell their stuff to, right across the border, nice and easy and cheap, easy to make a profit. Getting markets across the bloody pond on the other side of the planet, how the hell do you think you're going to ship that shit over there? That adds to the cost. Nobody's going to buy our crap over there if it can be manufactured nearby at a cheaper price. The Liberals are selling you a boatload of horse pucky. And there we go. That was Trump's response. Oh, yeah, treasonous piece of wrapped himself in a Palestinian flag. Because, for him, Muslim values are Canadian values. Tell that to the next female genital mutilation event that occurs in that religion, especially for those that come from Somalia, apparently. Now, while we're talking about the quality of life in Canada continuing to decline under 10 years of liberal kleptocracy, here we are back in 2013. Canada was ranked 5th. And here we are. Let's make this bigger, shall we? Make this bigger. Boom, there we go. Canada, 33rd. After France, after Latvia. Oh, look at all these countries here. We're worse off than Lithuania. We're worse off than Slovenia. Yeah, worse off than Denmark. Holy crap. And Denmark's really become a shithole in Europe. Wow. Yeah, yeah. Well, Taiwan, Taiwan's under threat of constant Chinese invasion, and they're doing better than us. Look at that, hey? The only people doing worse than us. See, Israel, and no wonder because they are in a constant state of war. All their neighbors want to kill them all the time. Slovakia, Cyprus. Oh my God! And to think we used to do peacekeeping missions there on a regular rotation, and that bombed out uh, shared Greece-Turkish island, and then South Korea. Yeah, the country that was completely wiped out in the Korean War. I mean, they barely had a little bit of foothold at the bottom of the peninsula before regaining the entire land and building it back up from scratch. And Kuwait's rich. How can they be way down there? Probably mismanaging their money. All right, well, how are we doing on time? Oh, good. 20 minutes away from question period. So, right, this is going on in the UK.
350 arms export licenses to Israel.
Breaking tonight, Britain has been told to stay out of Israel, not a snub to tourists, not a bureaucratic hitch, a blanket ban on the entire British government, no entry, no exceptions. Benjamin Netanyahu hasn't merely shut the door, he's bolted it and welded the hinges. His charge is stark. Britain has abandoned its allies and handed comfort to terrorists. This is not a diplomatic spat. It is a rupture, the kind that scars, the kind that redraws alliances in real time, while the public is still catching its breath. 4 days ago, Keir Starmer made 2 decisions that blew the fuses. First, support for ICC arrest warrants aimed at Israeli leaders. Then, a total arms embargo on Israel, not a narrow pause on offensive kit. A sweep that included defensive...
So when this announcement happened, there was an actual UK minister flying on his way over to Israel. And this came out of nowhere. They were completely blindsided. And the UK plane had to make a slow, wide turn over the Mediterranean and head back to UK. Because they got told. Why did they put this story up? What does it have to do with Canada? Well, the Liberals have decided that if Benjamin Netanyahu were to set foot in Canada, that they would arrest him. Yeah. So Canada is doing the same bloody thing to Israel that the UK is, except that, well, the UK has only canceled 30 of its 250 different arms sales that they have with them because, virtue signaling doesn't really always manufacture into action for the far left. They talk a big game, but they will never actually do anything. It's like land acknowledgements, right? They'll always say, oh, this is unceded territory, but will they ever give up their own private property to the natives? Fuck no. So here in Canada, we've also said we're going to arrest the Prime Minister of Israel, and yes, we are selling them arms stuff. So for them, I guess it's a balance. How much of their stuff do we want to need? We're going to finish those sales before we say, no, stay the fuck out, Canada, because it's coming. Because we're treating Israel the same way that the UK is. Because Canada, under the Liberals, is simpatico with the Labour Party and the idiots running Australia at the moment as well. They're all in the same far left globalist cabal, pushing the same legislation on their people. Let's move on to our next story.
Quebec just detonated a bombshell in the mining world. Bill 63, the brand new Mining Act, is here and it's flipping the rules upside down. So forget the old dusty framework. This one comes with teeth. It comes with deadlines and no place to hide. Now let's break this down. The first big change is the death of the old mining claim. It's gone. From now on, companies get something called an exclusive exploration right. And this isn't just a new name, it comes with a new deal. If you commit to exploration, you can't just sit on it any longer. You have to follow through on at least 90% of the promised work. If you don't, you lose it. So no more stockpiling land, no more waiting out the cycle. Next comes land access. Quebec is shutting the door on urban perimeters and private lands. They're now off limits for prospecting, for exploration and mining. So if you didn't already own rights before May 28, 2024, those areas are gone for good. Now that's a major shift for landowners, investors, and developers who thought exploration was wide open. Now then, there's the hammer blow to projects that want to move forward. Every new mine now faces a full environmental review. That means public consultations, that means restoration plans before you even get started. And that means ongoing monitoring. And it means financial guarantees on the table up front. So translation, if you dig, you clean it up. No more pushing cleanup to the next generation. Because Quebec wants a piece of the green economy. The law.
That was a very important part right there. No more having to push down the cleanup to the next generation. I wish they would apply the same thing to their stupid green technologies. Right? Oh, we'll subsidize these windmills for 20 years to make them viable because eventually, we expect the technology to catch up and actually produce energy cheaply instead of costing 4 times the cost of regular sources of energy. So, that's why windmills don't work, right? 3/4 of them have to be subsidized by our tax dollars just to be able to afford the power they generate, which means we can't really afford it, right? Because the tax dollars coming out of my pocket are subsidizing the power that I'm buying. So instead of paying 10 cents a kilowatt hour, it should be paying 40 kilocents a watt. And then, of course, the government's doing that different. I'm just pulling a figure out of my ass here. Don't know exactly how much they're charging, but still. But it doesn't matter because as the price of generation has continued to increase, right? Well, that doesn't mean that it catches up to what wind generation costs, because that keeps creeping them up at the same time, because they will never catch up. Because the power of cheap energy is still subsidizing the cost of expensive energy. Now, what they've done here in Quebec is very important. In fact, that should probably be applied across Canada, but it doesn't matter anyway. Even if they put these laws in to protect themselves for further exploration and exploitation of their natural resources federally, it can't be done. The Liberals have stopped anything from happening in Canada. Right? They spent the last 10 years saying, no, you can't disrupt Mother Earth. No, you must all be slaves to Mother Earth and die poor because we cannot exploit our natural resources. You Canadians, it's more important that you starve to death and die to keep our planet green, regardless of what other countries do. It's your lot in life to give your bones over for the green agenda. That's basically what they're doing. It's an anti-human policy. This is a good policy for Quebec. Like I said, without federal laws to allow people to actually come here and mine, not much is going to happen. So last week there was an attempt in the Legislative Assembly of BC to stop the insanity. But of course, it's going to take a while. It's not going to happen overnight, right? Because the far left cultural Marxist mindset is just terminal. Completely terminal when it comes to land acknowledgements. With this ideological acknowledgement at the beginning that is just going to piss natives off, because really, like, you're not going to give them their land back, are you? No, you're just going to do this virtue signaling for nothing. For nothing. And then when people call you out, you're going to call them racists. When in fact, you're doing racism exactly by doing this. There's a reason why, prior to doing any kind of public engagement or speaking thing, let me give you an example. In the Canadian Armed Forces, if you stand up in front of a group of people to do whatever it is that you need to do, you're expected to do a land acknowledgement before you do your little presentation, right? Why? It's an ideological narrative. It's a religion. It's a cult. Imagine standing up in front of a group and saying, "Hey, you know what? Before I do this, I'm going to do the Lord's Prayer." It doesn't matter if you're not Christian. I'm just going to do it anyway. Oh, does it offend you? I'm sorry. Oh, no, wait, hang on a sec. The government has just now instituted the fact that we have to do the Lord's Prayer at the beginning of every public speaking engagement now, so that we make sure that people understand that the Lord is superior. This is the same thing they're doing here, right? They're, no, land acknowledgements. That's the thing. That's the thing today. They don't think past their own selfish ideology, because that's the only thing that counts. So, of course, this reads rather well. And I've said this before, like last week, the BC MLA, whoever the speaker is there, he has a really good control over his legislative assembly, because there's no chattering, there's no snickering, they don't allow them to get away with anything, which is great, because then this person here can actually present their bill. A bill, of course, that, did not pass.
I rise today to introduce the Land Acknowledgement Prohibition Act. Land acknowledgements are the anthem of a suicidal nation. They're recited in classrooms, boardrooms, and before virtually every public event. They're repeated ritualistically to instill the belief that our country is illegitimate, that Canada has no right to exist, that our ancestors are evil, and our history must be abrogated. They tell our children that we stand on stolen land. This bill will make it unlawful for publicly funded institutions and their employees, such as teachers, to make or to compel others to make land acknowledgements that deny the sovereignty of the Crown over the lands of British Columbia, or that attribute collective guilt based on race, ancestry, or the historical actions of Canadian figures. Our bill expressly protects statements that are historically accurate and includes provisions to guarantee academic freedom. British Columbia has a glorious history. Our British founders entered this land in the 18th century as the untamed wilderness that it was. They built roads, railroads, mines, homes, and established laws. They created a civilization we call home and enjoy today. Our ancestors were not evil. The truth is they did not steal Canada, they built Canada, and we're not ashamed of that. We're proud of their legacy and of our history and culture, a magnanimous and glorious one. We'll no longer shame ourselves in the daily course of public life. Mr. Speaker, the Land Acknowledgement Prohibition Act declares that this land belongs to all British Columbians without apology and without surrender. We should end all forms of discrimination between citizens based on race or ancestry.
Thank you, Member.
I urge every member of this House to affirm their commitment to the equal rights and equal dignity of every Canadian by supporting this bill.
Member, the question is first reading of the bill. All those in favour say aye.
So because of this, of course, she was accused of racism. Yes, that's right. If you want to treat everybody equally in Canada, you're a racist. That's the far left ideology. That's the liberal mind think. And if you don't believe me, it's the liberals who've done this. A fish rots from the head down. The liberals have done this federally, from the top down, and all in the provinces, they've all followed along. This DEI thing has been in the works for years. Discussed this several times before. It's really just a continuing evolution of what's been being put out of the Frankfurt School of Thought. Cultural Marxism is evil, and it always has to pit some people against each others. It always needs to meddle. It needs to rewrite history. And they're doing it on purpose. They are the ones creating this constant bullshit. 10 years ago, everything was fine. And then they decide to change things and start calling people racist who don't agree with them. And they don't fucking stop. It's all about controlling the minds through fear or through hate with the left. Marty up north here. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, UNDRIP, is a 2007 Indigenous Rights Manifesto that is being rammed down Canada's throat as a global experiment like so many other UN programs. It demands self-determination, land rights, and cultural protection for Indigenous peoples. But in Canada, ground zero for this agenda, it's a messy power grab. In 2021, UNDRIP Act passed by the Trudeau Liberals forced federal laws to bend to it. But the real clash is in the dirt. Land disputes, pipeline battles, and provincial pushback expose the chaos. Once again, Canada is being used as a lab rat by the UN to see if the dystopian declaration can actually work or if it's just another elite pipe dream. The world's watching, and the stakes are high for us. Exactly. So what have we seen? We've seen Richmond send a letter to its taxpayers saying, oh, by the way, you don't own your land anymore. We're going to give it to the natives. Of course, then the pushback was, no, that wasn't the intent. No, people still own their land. Well, I don't think so. I think you're on the path here of UNDRIP. But what I always like to point out about this hypocrisy of UNDRIP is that who are the indigenous peoples of Judea? Who would that be? Who would the indigenous people of Judea be? Was it the Samnites? No, it wasn't them. They're gone. Who's remaining from back then? Oh, the Jews. That's right. So are you telling me UNDRIP doesn't apply to the Jews in Judea? Or maybe it should apply to the Palestinians in former Palestinian lands which were dedicated to them in the form of Jordan. Back then it was Transjordan when they made the decision. But the king of Jordan decided, oh no, I can't have all these other Arabs here. I want to keep the land to myself. It's a little Hashemite kingdom decision between them and the Saudis that they would take that land and just keep the other ones out. And that way they could keep using the Arabs that they wouldn't allow into Transjordan use them as political pawns. Actually, you know what? Transjordan did allow them in. I think they allowed 8,000 of them or so refugees in. And what did they do when they let them into Transjordan? They tried to take over the country. Yeah, tried to depose the ruler. And so Transjordan said, "Well, okay, so much for that experiment. Off you go," and kicked them back across the border. That's why today Jordan came out and said, "Yeah, you know what? We're not going to get involved with this whole peacekeeping thing in Gaza. Yeah, too messy for us." Yeah. Oh, we're still a couple of minutes away. What do we have here? Oh yes, Carney is shredding your money. This is a good little video by Melissa Lanceman where she shreds a $5 bill.
This is a $5 bill. It's got no intrinsic value, really. It's just a piece of plastic. And this is a shredder in my office. And just like that, the $5 bill is gone. Doing something like this is totally absurd and nothing that any person in their right mind would do. It's literally making money disappear out of thin air, right out of your wallet for no reason whatsoever. Long story short, if your spouse pulled something like this, they'd be sleeping on the couch for a long, long time. But this is exactly what our government is doing every single day. They're essentially reaching their hands into your wallet, pulling out that $5 bill and sending it straight into the shredder, even if you don't realize it. Let me explain. Let's rewind the clock just for a second. It's 2022, and stuff gets really expensive really fast. A basket of grocery goes from $50 to $100. Gas hits $2 a liter, and rents downtown spike to thousands of dollars a month. We all remember what an awful time that was for everybody. And why did it happen? 2 words: government spending. You see, in 2020, the federal government was already running deficits. But in that year, they started running massive deficits, the biggest on record, the biggest in history. Remember Justin Trudeau?
You'll forgive me if I don't think about monetary policy.
It's his government that spent more than every other government combined. So that prime minister was more expensive than every prime minister before him added together. But they couldn't just spend all of that money out of thin air. They had to get it from somewhere.
Please go ahead and watch the whole video. It's rather interesting. It's the same thing that we have tried to warn people about prior to the last election, is that they just keep printing money. And that's what they've done since they've been in, right? They increased their number of people giving them help, contractors, by 30%. They haven't stopped spending, and they're giving money away like there's no freaking tomorrow for this and that and the other. They don't care. What, millions of dollars going overseas for transgender climate whatever stuff, and their website is replete with exposures like this. Over $1 billion in aid going overseas, and they all say the same bloody thing: climate, gender, diversity, equity, feminism, all these buzzwords that they use to say, "Oh, this is why we need to push our ideology across the country." It's not about helping the villagers. No, it's always about all this ideological matrix. And they put this into everything. If you don't follow the matrix, you are going to be punished. You're going to be treated differently, right? So, what we got here? We still have statements by the members, I think. So we are getting close. Yes. Now her name escapes me. I'll remember it later. Come on, what's her name? Is it in here? Anyway, she's been involved for a long time in trying to expose a lot of the Islamic BS that's been going on. across the planet. She was actually even in front of a committee in Parliament when they were bringing in people to try to find out, if they should be censoring more people online because they're saying hurty things, right? Well, what she's going to be doing here is the exact same thing that a lot of other people, and she's also done in the past in different areas, is just trying to expose the double standards that the far left uses to slowly allow your society to disintegrate under Sharia law.
Things were tense. There were heads turning, people coming out of shops to look at us and find out what we were doing. Men started yelling in Arabic across the street at us. I hadn't even been in Lakemba 10 minutes before someone had tipped off the media, and they came running to combat me and tell me this was a perfectly safe area and I had nothing and no reason to be there. Almost immediately, the media story was proven to be wrong. As we went to go for a walk to the local mosque, a very high-ranked police officer.
Just to quickly interrupt, this is Lauren Southern. I believe she's a big conservative political activist.
Came up to me and begged with me, do not go there.
Where's the Southern, is it?
Speaking.
Inspector Rick Ages from KMC Police.
Yep.
I've been informed that you're intending to attending the Lakemba Mosque. Is that correct?
I actually have no intentions of attending. I was just planning on walking through the streets and seeing how the culture was here.
Yes?
Yep.
Are you satisfied with that?
Yep.
The honourable member for
So where do you
Belfast,
intend on
Chemin
walking to
Levy.
now?
I was just going to walk out and check how the mosque was.
Check where the mosque was?
Yep. Would I not be allowed to attend if I wanted to?
I've got grave concerns that you may cause an imminent breach of the peace down there, so I'm asking you not to attend.
Why would I cause a breach of the peace?
Because it's highly religious down there.
So would it be me causing a breach of the peace, or would it be
contributed over $539 million through the National Action Plan to end gender-based violence, to better protect women and end the cycle of violence. And on this side of the House, we invest in women's leadership. Women make up 40% of our Liberal team in Parliament, and we have the largest women's caucus in Canadian history. We know that when we invest in women, Canada thrives.
Bravo!
Oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Banque Alimentaire Canada.
Food Banks Canada has published its report on 2025, their final report, and they report a 100% increase in the number of people needing food bank assistance since the Liberals took power. Last year, 39% experienced food insecurity, 53% skipped meals, 34% spent a whole day without eating, and 82% of households were not able to get enough food because of the Liberals' inflationist prices. How many more meals are Canadians going to miss because of this Prime Minister's upcoming budget? The Honourable Government House Leader. Food Banks Canada reports on 4 main factors to help solve the hunger problem in Canada. It's a lasting problem, and it requires a huge battle to overcome. There are people with disabilities, there's health, there's dental care, there's food school programs, and the National Housing Strategy. Those are all programs that they voted against that will help. And they've voted against every initiative we've undertaken to support the disadvantaged. The Honourable Opposition Leader. Food Banks Canada, I'll paraphrase what they said, that it took decades to get 1 million people in the lineup for a food bank, but only 5 years to get up to 2 million clients in the lineup. So after 10 years of Liberal rule, there are now 700,000 children using food banks. The Liberal programs just feed bureaucracy, not children. Are they going to force Canadians to sacrifice even more now? The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know that Canadians are dealing with challenges, and that's why the government is investing in Canadian families to help them get ahead. Thanks to the school food program, which we are making permanent, we will alleviate some of the pressures on Canadian families, also through dental care, our child care program, and the Canada Child Benefit. These are essential measures to ease the pressure on Canadian families. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Released its report today, Hunger Count 2025. Showing the number of Canadians relying on a food bank has more than doubled since this Liberal government took office. It shows that 39% of the population experienced food insecurity, 82% did not have enough to eat, 34% went an entire day without eating, 53% missed a meal to afford something else, 28% went hungry at least once a week. Now the Prime Minister says Canadians will have to make even more sacrifices. How many meals will Canadians have to sacrifice for yet another costly Liberal budget?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is good at throwing all of this stuff out. What he's not good at is reading what the groups on the ground actually have to say. Of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government, opposed by this Leader of the Opposition and his party, systematically evoked in the report from Food Banks Canada today, Mr. Speaker. We support these key assistance programs for Canadians. He votes against them and then dares to get up and criticize us for putting in place support for the weakest Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, their programs do not feed kids. They feed bureaucracy, consultants, lobbyists, and Liberal insiders. And if you want to question that, 700,000 kids are lined up at food banks every single month. And let me quote from the report. It took decades to reach 1 million visits in any month, and it has now taken half a decade to more than double that. These are not outliers. This is Canada's new normal. The more government spends, the more things cost. How many meals will Canadian kids have to sacrifice for yet another costly Liberal budget?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In fact, Canada's largest food bank in Toronto, the Daily Bread Food Bank, is asking that the National School Food Program be made permanent through legislation. And we are delivering this. They're asking because the program helps provide nutritious meals to 400,000 children at school. The Conservative Party voted against this. The members opposite will soon have an opportunity to do the right thing for their constituents and make school food permanent. We urge them to do so.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, these Liberal programs feed bureaucracy, lobbyists, consultants, and insiders, but they don't feed kids. Children cannot eat Liberal press releases or Liberal photo ops. Mothers cannot fill shopping carts with Liberal boasting. Canadians need food, and right now, after 10 years of this Liberal government, there's now 2.2 million Canadians lined up at food banks. 700,000 of them are kids, and a third are in families where they work, but their paychecks are vaporized by Liberal taxes and inflation. How many meals will Canadians have to sacrifice for the next costly Liberal?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the Leader of the Opposition seems to flat out ignore the fact that this government is focused on affordability. We are focused on affordable housing, which the reports outline as a critical driver for affordable food. We are taking action, Mr. Speaker. We look at the trajectory we are on right now. Mortgage rates are coming down. Average rents are coming down, according to the Parliamentary Budget Office. We're seeing progress, but we're not stopping there, Mr. Speaker. Build Canada homes will be in this budget, $13 billion that this opposition can vote for affordable housing in.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Their focus is affordability. Mr. Speaker, here are the facts from the Hunger Count report. 78% of food banks had to buy more food than normal because they were running out and not collecting enough donations. 1/4 of food banks actually ran out of food while there are still people lined up waiting for something to eat. We now have nearly 1/3 of Canadians who go hungry at least once a week. This sounds like something out of a Great Depression, and the Prime Minister has the audacity to say Canadians should sacrifice even more. How many meals will his costly budget force Canadians to sacrifice?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Mr. Speaker, I take it by the question of the Leader of the Official Opposition that he will support Budget 2025, where we make the school food program permanent, where we double down on jobs for young Canadians, where we invest in skills training for the skilled trades professionals of the future. Mr. Speaker, I just announced that in the budget, personal support workers will receive a tax credit of $1,100 a year. Mr. Speaker, we are putting money and support in the hands of Canadians, and that's why they trust us, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, indeed. The Honourable Member for Saint Jean. Mr. Speaker, just this past weekend, the government blamed the opposition, complaining that there was a lack of support to get the budget passed. But just a friendly reminder, the people elected a minority government. That means the people wanted the government to work with the opposition to come to agreements. The government can come to agreements with the Conservatives or with us or with independent members. So instead of complaining and threatening elections, when are they going to get down to work? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, of all the criticisms you could make about this government, not working, I think, not getting down to work is one of the furthest fetched criticisms. Now, there are 44 Quebec members elected on this side of the House who are working pretty darn hard, Mr. Speaker, for their communities and for people in their ridings and to meet the real needs out there in Quebec. The Bloc, it seems to me, is a bit slow to realize this with their 22 members. Yes, the Bloc is a minority. The Honourable Member for Saint Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals don't even know what it means to work together for the common good. What they're saying is vote for our budget even though we have completely ignored Quebecers' needs. And then they're surprised when we tell them they need to get back to work. We're 1 week before November 4th. The Liberals are well aware of our demands around healthcare, seniors, housing, access to home ownership, infrastructure, and the reimbursement of the $800 million stolen from Quebecers. The real question is, do they want our support? The Honourable Minister of Diversity and Canadian Culture. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I think I'll call for your assistance because we're having a lot of trouble understanding the Bloc's position. There was a meeting between the Prime Minister and the Bloc and the House Leader and the Finance Minister and myself, and they presented all their demands, and now they're saying they're not going to vote for the budget. So are they willing to negotiate? If so, we are too. But if they're not willing, you can't sit in the middle of two chairs like that. You can't have your cake and eat it too. The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals met with party leaders about the budget when the budget had already been written. They didn't talk to Quebecers either. There were no pre-budget consultations. No witnesses were heard in committee. After a year and a half without a budget, the Liberals worked on their own without even meeting a single stakeholder from Quebec's socioeconomic communities. And then they're surprised when we tell them they're not meeting the needs of Quebecers. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals know what they need to do to get our support. The real question is, do they really want their budget to pass? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, Canadians elected a new government 6 months ago. A government with a mandate to undertake major projects in Quebec and outside Quebec to work on the needs of our communities and to move ahead with projects that will create opportunities for our young people all across Quebec and Canada. Mr. Speaker, the question is, will the Bloc trigger an election at Christmas in 2025? Yes or no?
Member for Thornhill.
The Daily Bread
Bread Food Bank and the North York Food Bank in Toronto just released their annual report. It's called Who's Hungry? And it seems like the answer to that question is nearly everyone. 2.2 million visits in a single month. It took decades to hit 1 million and only half a decade under these Liberals to double it to more than 2 million. They found that 82% of households report they didn't have enough food to eat in this year. The majority said it was because of the cost of living. Every dollar that the government spends simply drives up food prices. It's over 4 million visits in Toronto. How many more people do they want visiting next year?
Yeah, way to go.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, this government has taken and continues to take real action that supports the people of Canada. We have instituted the National Food Program. We have instituted the Canadian Dental Care Program. We have instituted a number of things that help Canadians, whereas the Conservatives can't be trusted to help anyone. They use this as a speaking point instead of really caring about Canadians and whether or not they have the resources they need. These programs help seniors. They help seniors across the country and ensure that they have what they need to retire with dignity, where the Conservatives push the retirement age higher.
That's a horrible.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Speaker, if any one of those programs worked, there wouldn't be over 700,000 kids in line at a food bank. Make food cheaper. Instead, they doubled the deficit and they sent food bank usage up 360% in 5 years in Toronto. Students make up a quarter of those visits to food bank, and just last week, the Prime Minister lectured them all about making sacrifices. Well, they've already sacrificed home ownership, they've sacrificed good-paying jobs, and now he's asking them to sacrifice food. What will it take for the Prime Minister to make them, or what sacrifices will they need to make to stop this Prime Minister from his out-of-control spending?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The report invoked also clearly states that to tackle these challenges, we need to strengthen supports to families. It specifically mentions delivering school food, dental care, childcare, and affordable housing at scale. Conservative MPs have voted against each of these measures. In fact, Conservative MP for Central Newfoundland called the National School Food Program garbage, even though it's already feeding 4,000 kids in his home province. We are focused on solutions and on delivering for Canadian families.
Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyendinaga.
Food banks were meant for emergencies, not everyday survival. Yet more Canadians rely on them each month just to eat. Families are working harder but falling further behind as groceries soar and paychecks shrink. This isn't about generosity, Mr. Speaker, it's about failure. As Food Banks Canada CEO Kristen Beardsley warns, there were 2.2 million food bank visits in a single month. The longer they ignore the reality on the ground, the deeper the crisis becomes. Mr. Speaker, when will this Liberal government realize their inflationary deficits are driving Canadians to the food bank?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, I assume the Member of Parliament opposite was listening to my colleague when she was quoting Canada Food Banks about what needs to happen next, which is making the school nutrition program permanent, Mr. Speaker, investing in affordable houses, Mr. Speaker, ensuring that people have the supports that they need to live a comfortable life, Mr. Speaker, including affordable child care and dental care. And, Mr. Speaker, that's what we're going to do, and we sure hope they don't vote against Canadians again.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyendinaga.
We keep sounding the alarm, but it feels like no one on that side is listening, Mr. Speaker. Families are stretched thin and communities are breaking under the weight of rising costs. One food bank executive said it plainly: housing and food costs are the greatest contributors to the increase in our services. Costs for basic living continues to rise while the money coming in does not. When will this government finally hear the voices of Canadians and stop letting hidden taxes, packaging taxes, and the industrial carbon tax drive families to the food bank?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, well, again, the member opposite did connect the dots between housing costs and food costs, and that's why this government is so laser focused on affordable housing. And we are seeing action on this. We're seeing progress to date. We've seen average rents come down across Canada. We're seeing mortgage rates come down. We're seeing home prices come down to make life more affordable. We're cutting taxes for 22 million Canadians and first-time home buyers. All of those measures are delivering results, and we aren't stopping there, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Quebec-Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, Food Banks Canada reports 2.2 million visits in a single month, double what it was just 6 years ago. Their CEO says poverty and hunger have become the new normal in Canada. Working Canadians, from construction crews to office staff, are having to stop by food banks on their way home from work. In rural Canada, where food and fuel already cost more and jobs are often seasonal, families are being hit hardest. When will the Prime Minister admit his inflationary deficits are driving Canadians to food banks instead of grocery stores and change course?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, it's hard to listen to the party opposite talk about affordability when they voted against every single affordability measure this government has put forward. Whether it's the Canada Child Benefit, whether it's daycare, whether it's the school food program, which is not garbage, whether it's housing. Mr. Speaker, we're focused on making affordability for Canadians. We're cutting taxes for 22 million Canadians. We're cutting the GST for first-time homebuyers. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we believe in supporting the most vulnerable in our society. They don't. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable-Lotbinière. Montreal is going hungry. That's what La Presse says. It's a gloomy picture of the state of finances of Canadian families after 10 years of Liberal rule. 600,000 people in Quebec depend on food banks, and all across Canada, it's over 2 million people per month using food banks. The trend accelerated after 10 years of inflationary Liberal spending. 33% are children. It's almost 2 times as many. Is the Prime Minister going to call on Canadians to make even more sacrifices? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Food inflation is a global phenomenon which is much more complex than the simplistic slogans of the Conservatives. The big difference between them and us is that here on this side, we believe governments should provide support against inflation to help the middle and lower class families. That's what we're doing with our school food program, with dental care, with child care. And this is going to make a significant difference in the lives of Quebecers. The Conservatives, last week, one of them said it was garbage. That's the difference between Conservatives and Liberals. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, that government claims that they're supporting against inflation, but they're actually creating inflation. And that's why Food Banks Canada's final report for 2025 says that this has become the new normal in Canada, to go to the food bank under this Liberal government. 25% of users have jobs, 8% are seniors, 23% are dual-parent families. What's the Prime Minister waiting for? When's he going to stop the inflationary spending that's pushing more and more Canadians to the food banks? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This report clearly indicates that in order to meet the challenge, we need to strengthen our supports to families, and the Conservatives have opposed every step we've taken to support Canadian families. And in fact, the Conservative member called the program, the food school program, called it garbage. One Conservative member said that. And we, even though Food Banks is calling for us to make it permanent, which we will do, we will continue to support Canadian families. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, on Saturday, Donald Trump announced an additional 10% tariff for our forestry industry. That's in addition to the 10% we've already been paying since October 14th, and 35% countervailing duties that already existed. So that's 55% in tariffs and duties. It's clear Washington wants to crush our industry. We need a rescue plan, including financial support and wage supports to protect jobs. and we need that now. 55%, Mr. Speaker. What more is it going to take for this government to act? The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-US trade. Mr. Speaker, obviously the government is still open to resuming our trade talks with the Americans, but our colleague referred to certain increases, potential increases to tariffs. I think we need to be careful. Before that's made official, we shouldn't jump to the conclusion that a certain amount of tariffs will be imposed. But we do fully share the members' concern about the future for workers and for the forestry industry. As we are also concerned about other industries, we will continue to support those workers and industries. The honourable member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, talk is one thing, action is another. The forestry was already at a breaking point before the announcement of new tariffs on Saturday. It's the hardest hit industry by Washington, and yet the financial aid announced by the Liberals in August has still not flowed. Almost 3 months later, there are still no wage supports to protect jobs. There's still no rescue plan. Worse still, Canada has even cut back on measures to boost access to EI. Mr. Speaker, the crisis isn't over. It's only getting worse. When will the Liberals take action to help our forestry industry? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, we are activated. We're willing to work with my colleague, who I know has a number of forestry companies in his riding. Financial support is available through the banks, and it's guaranteed by BDC. The system is working, and some benefits have already been paid out. So we are in solutions mode. That said, we know there's more to be done, and we know we have to support the industry and the workers, and we will.
Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Under these Liberals, food prices have gone bananas. They're so bad that 1 in 5 food bank users works full-time. Even people working full-time cannot afford to eat in Canada. Now food banks are feeling the crunch, jammed with 2.2 million visits in a single month, and the Liberals think Canada is ripe for more inflationary spending, rubbing salt on the wounds. When will Liberals stop squashing workers with their inflationary spending and realize that it's time to reverse course?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Food Banks Canada has highlighted the importance of federal government action that is helping Canadians, like the National School Food Program and like the Canadian Dental Care Program. This is helping more than 2 million seniors. We're building an economy that works for everyone. Conservatives have a record of pushing the retirement age higher, cutting benefits, leaving seniors behind. Not again, Mr. Speaker. The Canadian public trusts us, not them. That's why, while they're voting against every measure for Canadians, we're empowering older Canadians and protecting not only their dignity, but their peace of mind.
The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, these Liberals love to talk about political food programs instead of affordable food. That was the question. Before liberal inflationary spending and hidden food taxes, Canadians could actually afford to feed themselves. Parents don't want the state parenting their children for them. Parents want the government to eliminate food taxes and stop inflationary spending so they can afford to feed their kids themselves. The Liberal fuel standard, food packaging tax, industrial carbon tax, inflationary spending. Speaker, when will it end?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
A few things that I think need to be cleared up here, Mr. Speaker. They talk about these imaginary taxes. I think the member needs to come clean. There is no tax on groceries. There never will be a tax on groceries. That is pretty clear. They talk about imaginary programs. I assure the member that he has voted against some very real programs, Mr. Speaker, very real programs for school food, for dental care, and many other things that are for the most vulnerable in society. The last thing, though, what is inflationary spending when it comes to supporting Canadians? Canadians want to know, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
Every dollar this Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians through higher prices and food inflation. It took decades for food banks to have 1 million food bank users every month. It took the Liberals just 6 months to double that number. This Prime Minister said bet. He's going to double the deficit and make more than 2.2 million Canadians visit a food bank in a single month. When will these guys realize that inflationary deficits are driving up food costs and driving more Canadians into food banks?
Yeah, way to go, Jen.
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
You know, when the Prime Minister said that it's time for Canada to bet big, he meant bet big on Canadians, and that's something these guys don't understand. They refuse to invest in Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Today I announced that in Budget 2025, $75 million will go to building trades unions to make sure that kids and young people can get great jobs in the skilled trades. These are good-paying jobs, Mr. Speaker. That's what it looks like to bet on Canadians. That's what it looks like to have the backs of Canadians.
Well done. The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
If programs like that actually worked and didn't feed bureaucracy, then 700,000 kids wouldn't be visiting a food bank every single month. And their liberal deficits are what are making the food go up in cost. That's why grocery inflation is up 4%. People who used to donate and that used to volunteer at food banks are now standing in line for food at those food banks. Why won't these Liberals stop feeding their egos, stop feeding their bloated bureaucracy, so Canadians can finally afford to feed themselves?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
So which is it, Mr. Speaker? They're either about empowering Canadians through good-paying jobs or empowering Canadians through the kinds of programs like the school food program. We believe in both, Mr. Speaker, because we're betting on Canadians. We're betting on both their resiliency and their ability to get those great-paying jobs as we create those projects across the country. This member opposite, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't want to invest in Canadians either to support them now or to help them have better futures. So which is it? Which is it that he's asking for? To cut services for Canadians or invest in them? We're going to do both. We're going to make sure Canadians have.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon University.
Hardworking Canadians spend all day at work, and on the way home, they are not stopping at grocery stores. It's food banks. For millions of working Canadians, they have to go to the food banks because they can't afford the hidden Liberal food taxes like the industrial carbon tax and the food packaging tax. Food Banks Canada reports a record-smashing 2.2 million visits in a single month. And donations, well, they're down because Canadians are broke. When will these out-of-touch Liberals admit to driving up the cost of food and driving Canadians to the food bank?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Northern.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. After 10 years of Conservative MPs coming to Ottawa, collectively with 14 of them coming, that's 140 years. And that's the first question we got from a Saskatchewan perspective, Mr. Speaker. In my riding, Saskatchewan is finally here on the government side. We're going to address housing, Mr. Speaker. We're going to address the cost of living. And I'm glad finally the Conservatives from Saskatchewan finally woke up.
The Honourable Member for Avalon.
Mr. Speaker, constituents of my riding of Avalon and the good people of Newfoundland and Labrador were shocked to hear the Conservative member of Central Newfoundland say that the Healthy Meals program, which feeds 4,100, yes, 4,100 or more kids at schools in our province, was garbage. In reality, hundreds of thousands of additional children are being fed at schools across Canada thanks to this government. But I guess it is easier to say you're going to cut a program if you try to make yourself believe that it doesn't exist. Can the Secretary of State please inform my constituents how national food...
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Avalon for his question. In fact, Sarah from Central Newfoundland reached out to tell me about the National School Food Program at their school after her members' comments last week. And I quote, she said, "It's wonderful. More students are getting healthy lunches, and the lunch lady went from part-time to full-time. Plus, they hired 2 nans as part-time. Employment in his area." Mr. Speaker, there are countless examples like this across Canada of kids getting meals thanks to the National School Food Program. We will always be there for Canadian families.
The Honourable Member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Children are going hungry in Canada due to Liberal mismanagement. Every dollar this Liberal Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadian families through higher prices and food inflation. A third of Canadian children now live in a food-insecure household. Food Banks Canada reports record-breaking food bank use with 2.2 million visits in a single month and over 700. Their inflationary deficits are driving up the cost of food banks and driving Canadian children to the food bank.
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we are committed to growing the strongest economy in the G7 and
not okay.
Protecting and strengthening the supports that help Canadian families. The report that is being highlighted here, again, I would say that the relief that families get through the school food program, dental care, childcare, these are all things that report cites as critical to addressing the challenges that Canadians are facing right now. This government will always stand with Canadian families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
If a single one of those projects and programs actually worked, there wouldn't be 700,000 children waiting in food bank lines every single month. This is not okay. And yet somehow the Liberals have normalized this. 9 out of 10 kids aren't even fed by the school food program, Mr. Speaker. When will the Liberals realize their inflationary deficits and hidden food taxes are making food more expensive and driving Canadian children to food banks?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No child in this country should go to school hungry. This is why our government brought forward the National School Food Program, and that is why this new government has committed to making this program permanent and introducing legislation to do so, as well as the funding necessary to ensure this program continues in perpetuity. This is an essential piece of tackling the challenges that Canadian families are facing. We are proud of this program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Battleford, Lloydminster, Meadow Lake.
Mr. Speaker, every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians through higher prices and food inflation. Food Banks Canada is reporting 2.2 million visits in a single month. This is double what it was just 6 years ago. Even more alarming, 1 in 3 of those visits is by a child. Their CEO says parents are stopping in at the food bank on the way home from work, not the grocery store. When will this Prime Minister finally admit his inflationary spending and deficits are driving parents to the food banks?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, years ago, Food Secure Canada did an analysis of all the issues in the food system. Do you know what issue was the most popular among Canadians? Feeding kids. It's instinctual for any parent, but the desire to feed kids extends almost universally to all Canadians, except when it comes to the Conservatives. They've taken the most unpopular position. They actually oppose a national school food program. Their usual excuse is to claim that there's no food in the food program, but last week they actually had the gall to call the food program garbage. Who does that? Who says that, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Member for Battleford, Lloydminster, Meadow Lake.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if these programs actually fed the children that the Liberals are claiming they feed, there wouldn't be 750,000 plus children lined up at the food banks every month. Mr. Speaker, it's the hidden taxes like the fuel standard, the food packaging tax, the industrial carbon tax, and rising inflation that are making it harder for families at the grocery checkout. Grocery prices are up 4% overall, with ground beef up 17, coffee up 28, soup is up 9%. And those numbers, Mr. Speaker, translate to record numbers of Canadians turning to the food banks to feed their families. When will this Prime...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, while our government invests in feeding 400,000 more kids healthy food in schools, the Conservatives call that garbage. While our government works to expedite major infrastructure projects creating tens of thousands of jobs, the Conservative leader calls them pathetic. While our government gives law enforcement the tools they need to keep our communities safe, the Conservative leader calls the RCMP despicable. The pattern is clear. The Conservatives will disparage people, projects, and programs that help Canadians while we continue to deliver for them.
The honourable member for King Vaughan.
The very people that built this country and taught us the value of hard work while managing our budgets are having to line up at the food bank. Food Banks Canada reports that almost 10% of food bank users are seniors, up 22% from 2019. This Liberal government's reckless spending has driven up prices and left our seniors behind. When will this Liberal government respect our seniors and stop the inflationary spending so that they can live their retirement years in dignity?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
This government is the only party in this House that can be trusted to have seniors' backs. We returned the age of retirement to 65 when those folks wanted to push it up to 67. Through this government's actions, we are ensuring that Canadian seniors have access to one of the largest social programs in the country, and that is the Old Age Security and Guaranteed Income Supplement. Through that, we are ensuring, Mr. Speaker, that folks have up to $1,086 per month for the most financially vulnerable seniors. It is things like this that ensure seniors have...
The honourable member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians through higher prices and through food inflation. Monthly visits to food banks have doubled since 2019, with 2.2 million visits per month. Nearly 10% of food bank users are now seniors. This is up 22%. This reliance on food banks has to become an ongoing necessity to survive. Mr. Speaker, when will the Liberals realize that their inflationary deficits are driving up the cost of food and driving Canadians to the food bank?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Speaker, I think we've covered quite a bit in this question period, but let me remind the opposition that today I was with the SEIU, who represents personal support workers across this country. These incredible, hardworking people who support our family members, our seniors every day under Budget 2025. It proposes that they will receive a tax credit, a non-refundable tax credit worth $1,100 a year, Mr. Speaker. The union fought for this. They asked for this. Promise made, promise kept, Mr. Speaker. And I'll end with this. This is money in the pockets of these workers. I sure hope they're going to support the budget.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this morning, a baby abandoned in a bus shelter died. It's undescribably sad, and I'm sure that all of my colleagues here in this House join me in hoping that that baby rests in peace. How much must somebody suffer to come to that situation? People are suffering. People are having a hard time getting housing. People are having a hard time getting food. People are losing their jobs. Canadians are suffering, Mr. Speaker. Are the Liberals aware of the consequences of their poor management? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think I speak on behalf of all colleagues when we send our sympathy to this tragedy which has affected all of Quebec right now, and we send our sympathy to the family. The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, these are facts. This child had a family, and we need to fight, Mr. Speaker. We are talking about our people. We're talking about people in my riding of Richmond, Arthabaska. Use of the food bank has gone up. People created an organization to put food in our kids' lunch boxes. What are the Liberals going to do to help our people eat and feed our children? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of State for Children and Youth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's clear that we have a national food program for schools to help kids and to help Canadians meet their challenges. What I have to say is that you'll have the opportunity to support the budget for that program, and I would encourage all members to support the National Food School Program. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, food banks in Canada have reported a record number of 2.2 million visits in just 1 month. The CEO of Food Banks Canada said, and I quote, "Poverty and hunger have been normalized in Canada. People are stopping at food banks on their way home from work instead of going to the grocery store. Inflationary deficits are increasing the cost of food. Why does the Prime Minister continue to spend more without worrying about people who have nothing to eat?" The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Mr. Speaker, I'm always surprised to hear these questions from a party that was ready to sacrifice all kinds of programs that Quebecers and Canadians depend on every day. If we think, for example, about the Canada Child Benefit, the dental care program, the school food program, and Mr. Speaker, I would invite him to come to my riding, speak to people from the Saint Vincent de Paul, talk to people at the United Way, and tell them that it's just bureaucracy that's never helped anybody. I think they need to reconnect with reality on the other side of the House. The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Our government has always been there to help our healthcare workers. These men and women are devoted, and they take care of our loved ones and our seniors every day. My question is for the Minister of Health, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister please explain how the measures newly announced today, including the tax credit for personal support workers and new support for union training, will help strengthen our healthcare system and better support those who work in it? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Our new government is recognizing, training, and retaining those who take care of Canadians every single day. Our new refundable tax credit for personal support workers reaches up to $1,100 per person, recognizes their incredible work. We are protecting workers by eliminating non-competition clauses in the federal sector. We will continue to support the healthcare workers who support Canadians.
Honourable Member for Kenora-Kiiwetinoong.
The Prime Minister told a room full of students that they're going to have to make sacrifices. They've already given up their dream of home ownership. They went all summer without work, and they are paying the price of exploding food, Mr. Speaker. Food bank visits have doubled since 2019, and Canadians shouldn't have to sacrifice any more for Liberal failures. They have sacrificed enough over 10 long years. So will the Liberals finally keep their promises and get spending under control so that young Canadians can afford to feed themselves?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Mr. Speaker, today I announced another $75 million into skilled trades training in partnership with unions across this country. And you know why, Mr. Speaker? Because Red Seal trades are great paying jobs, and we need individuals all across this country to build the homes, to build the projects, to build the infrastructure. And Mr. Speaker, we know that unions can get the job done. And these great paying jobs, Mr. Speaker, is what youth have to look forward to as we build Canada strong together.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister told a room full of students that they're going to have to make sacrifices. This includes students at Fanshawe College in London. But young Canadians have already sacrificed enough for over 10 long years.
That's right. Yeah.
They've sacrificed the dream of home ownership. They've paid the price as food costs exploded. They've spent the summer without work.
Shame.
Food Banks Canada reported that monthly food bank visits have doubled since 2019, reaching over 2.2 million. Nearly 1 in 5 people using food banks have jobs, but they still cannot make ends meet. Their CEO warned that poverty and hunger are being normalized in Canada. When will the Liberals stop breaking promises so hungry Canadians can afford to feed themselves?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, while the party opposite leader and that party are clearly out of control. We're focused on this side about what we can control. And we are going to make generational investments to change our economy from reliance to resilience. On November 4th, Mr. Speaker, we're going to table a budget that is going to invest in Canada. We're going to build Canada because we believe in Canada, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The honourable member for Terra Nova, the Peninsulas.
Mr. Speaker, food bank usage has doubled in the past 6 years, now with over 2 million usages per month. 1 in 5 of those people are actually employed. Even 4 of those food bank users are from 2-parent households. Young people in this country are doing everything right, and they still can't live because of this liberal inflation. Instead of asking young Canadians to make more sacrifices, why can't this Liberal government sacrifice their ego and stop their inflationary budgets?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr. Speaker, I want to remind another colleague from Newfoundland and Labrador in the opposition that school nutrition programs is important to our province. We were the first to sign on for this program because it matters. The Conservatives voted against it. One Conservative called it garbage. It does feed children, it matters, and I'm asking this member, are they going to vote with us when the time comes?
The honourable member for Brampton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians depend on personal support workers every day, whether they're in long-term care homes, retirement residences, or community settings. These workers deserve fair recognition for the critical care they provide. Can the Minister update this House on how Budget 2025 will help strengthen the PSW workforce and ensure they're supported and rewarded for their vital contributions?
The Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I was at Extended Care with a number of personal support workers as we announced this measure of support for the very workers that care for our loved ones. And Kelly, one of the support workers, said, you know, people talk all the time about the importance of the work, but this is the first time we've ever felt like someone's doing something for us. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm just so thrilled to say that we will be supporting personal support workers with a refundable tax credit of $1,100 a year. And, Mr. Speaker, what's more is we'll make sure that those workers are not just feeling supported, but are supported in the workplace.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent, Akiawenlak. Mr. Speaker, you know, we thought we'd seen everything at the CRA, but yesterday, Radio Canada and Danielle Leblanc told us that the CRA had given money to a business that had asked for money back, and it wasn't verified by workers. Do you know how much money was sent out? $4.99 million. Almost $5 million, Mr. Speaker. And do you know who realized that? Well, not the CRA. It was TD Bank, Mr. Speaker. So the banks are doing the work of the CRA. It doesn't make any sense, but that's 10 years of Liberal mismanagement. Is there anyone on that team who's going to rise and dare to defend this?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions and the Canada Revenue
Abuse
Agency.
of the tax system is illegal, and the CRA takes enforcement action when instances of abuse are identified. While we cannot comment on matters before the courts, Canadians can be assured that the CRA is maintaining the integrity of the tax system and preventing misuse of sensitive data. Canada's new government is committed to working with the CRA to continue to strengthen the integrity of our tax system and protect taxpayer dollars. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans are being charged $100 for COVID-19 vaccination while other Canadians are getting their vaccinations for free. The Canada Health Act guarantees access to necessary health services for everyone, regardless of where they live. But this government is doing nothing while premiers break the law and Canadians' health suffers. I wrote to the Prime Minister about this months ago, and I have yet to hear back from him. So I'm asking the Prime Minister today, why is he refusing to enforce the Canada Health Act so Canadians get the health care they deserve?
The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I'd like to say to my colleague that We indeed believe in vaccines. The science is very clear on vaccines. We are working closely with the provinces and territories to accelerate vaccination rates. Vaccines, which are necessary, which are absolutely necessary, are covered by the provinces, and I am working with her province of Alberta to increase vaccination rates in that province. Thank you.
That brings question period to an end. And we'll take a few minutes to allow members to leave the chamber quietly. And while I'm on my feet, I'd like to remind members that the volume of earpieces will now be reset. Once again, if you could leave quickly and quietly, please.
Well, another question period downrange. This one, not too many new things today. Kind of expected more fireworks, but nothing really. Seems like they're all about the $1,100 that personal care workers can now put on their tax reforms at the end of the year if the budget passes. Let's make sure that's closed. Oh, hang on a sec.
Proceedings, tabling of documents, introduction of government bills. Colleagues?
Nope. No, I thought maybe there might be some announcements or points of orders there, but to be done after everybody ambled out of the lower house, but no. Yes, so they're all about their $1,100, and of course, if you missed it last week, there was one of the members actually who stood up and said, "Hey, your school lunch program is garbage," and it is garbage because it only pays for the administration. Right? I know this other member on the other side was saying, our kids in Newfoundland are getting paid by this thing. But no, actually, if you follow the money trail, it only goes towards the bureaucracy to assist with ensuring that other systems are set up within those provinces, the provinces that already had school lunch programs. Right? So when they're talking about, oh, now our school lunch lady can be hired all the time, plus they hired 2 other people. Yeah, where did that money come from? The money came from our pockets. That money came from Canadian citizens across the country who are having problems feeding themselves, who are attending food banks. So those taxes that they're collecting from there are now paying for these school lunch programs that they're so happy about. Oh, we've destroyed the economy. So please celebrate our socialism by making us give you a house that, that you people are going to have to pay for, and give you a lunch that everyone is going to have to pay for, that only a few people are going to get some benefit out of it. And while the bureaucracy that gets paid to administer these lunches are going to get paid. Yeah. This is all they want to do, is continue to destroy our society with their ridiculous bills and rules. And every time people call them out on it, they just call somebody else a name and then they lie. That's why the lie count is up highest I've ever seen today. 102 freaking lies. Now, if you want to know what the lies are, there's a description on how we deal with what are lies in Parliament. And the first thing that comes out of their mouth is usually a lie. Every time they assume, every time they say something that isn't true, every time that they talk about something in the future that's going to happen, these are all lies. If it's not a fact, if it's not a clear answer to what was asked, it's going to be a lie. There is no other way around it. Now I'm looking here at the comments. Thank you again, Oli. I know you gave me the description on how that was pronounced before, but it's really difficult. Looking at your comments here, I've always enjoyed the way the Brits shout speakers down in the house, but the constant background chatter here, yes. I don't know if you watched earlier in the video today. I had a piece from the Legislative Assembly in BC, and had one last week as well. And that speaker in that Legislative Assembly, he's got full control. Like, you're not even allowed to drop a pen and make a noise, or else somebody sounds like somebody's going to give you a dirty look. Yeah, he's got really good control. It's really up to the speaker. And then there's the other aspect of tradition, right? Because the way that traditions evolve in the lower house over the years basically is how the government acts in the house. Now, a lot of people don't realize this. Before um, the house was televised, because it wasn't always televised, obviously. I mean, TV wasn't around before, but televised televising the lower house only started becoming a thing, I believe, in the early 80s, maybe around 81, maybe around there. So before that, the only time you could actually listen to the parliament was in sound files or on the radio. And, because websites, obviously, websites weren't around before then as well. So if you really wanted to know what happened in Parliament, you had to go back and read the Hansard and go down and read what they said that was recorded in Parliament. Now, over the years, we evolved. So then it started being broadcast on the radio. And instead of applauding, then they used to pound on their desks. Right? You could just hear everybody with the thundering, right? As soon as it became televised, they were still pounding on their desks. And then people realized how stupid it looked on TV. So it only took about a week. People stopped pounding on their desks, and then they started to applaud. So when we talk about the amount of chatter that's happening in the background and the noise and everything, that's the culture in our lower house. Probably won't find that kind of noise happening up in the Senate. It's just the insanity that happens there. It's just the way it is. If they can't keep their mouth shut when somebody has the floor, eject them. Well, unfortunately, that comes down to the Green Book. Right? The Green Book details the rules on how procedures occur in committees, throughout Parliament, and in question period. So if those rules are not amended, then that particular thing can't happen, right? So right now, the only way a member can be ejected from the lower house is if they call somebody else a liar and then refuse to retract it. And then they get named and they get kicked out. And it's up to the speaker to keep them kicked out forever until they apologize or change that, or just to decide to ignore it. That's the other thing that they often do. It goes, "Oh, sorry, there was a lot of noise. I didn't hear that. I didn't see that," kind of thing, right? And then of course sometimes after that they have to go back to the Hansard and see if it actually got caught, and if it did, then they can bring it back as a point of order. See, if the facts and the law aren't on your side, pound the table. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you've seen them in Parliament the few times when they're on camera and you can see them bantering back and forth because they have to work with each other, right? Their offices are down the hall from each other. They often interact with each other. The demonstrations, the performances that they put for us in Parliament, in many ways, are performances. And in some cases, it's not a performance. They're really taking it to heart. And we saw that with the member of parliament that actually held the seat before Pierre Poilievre took it over. He was kicked out of the House during the last session for calling the Liberals liars. Epic rant that he had, and he wouldn't apologize. So I think he realized that when he went to the House, that the place just wasn't for him. There was just too much corruption and bullshit for him to filter through. And for somebody like that, he's probably, when he saw Pierre lost his seat, he goes, "Oh my God, I think I have an out. I think I really enjoyed that a little bit, but you know what? Maybe it's not for me. I'm just not that kind of person." And I think that's truly it. I think people with ethics and morals would have a really hard time working as a parliamentarian because of all the anti-human fuckery that goes on. Right. Well, let's bring our show to an end. I've got an outro with one of the videos that we've med. Talk after 2 hours. All right. Thank you all for coming out. As a reminder, please like, share, subscribe. And we'll be right back here tomorrow at 10:30 with the next House session to see the insanity that happens there. Of course, with a preamble with all the far left evil that there's plenty of to cover before the show. All right. Thank you all for coming out. We'll see you next time. And let's see if this fade works.
Gov't back in build homes.
Sorry, guys, something's going on here. And why is that not showing up?
Government announced back in March that you would build 500,000 homes a year. And with that announcement, if you look at the numbers, that means that you would have to build 57 homes per hour per day every year. Are you on track to build 50? Are you currently building 57 homes an hour? Minister, how many housing starts will Canada see this year?
To the member, we're on track at this point, about 14% higher than last September, the CMHC number. So we're tracking north of 250,000 starts this year. If it's annualized,
what's the
closer
number?
to 280, but somewhere between 240 and 280 would be my.
Your housing department says that housing starts will be down this year.
The stats are from CMHC. The latest stats came in for September, which showed us tracking 14% above last September in terms of housing starts across the country.
Now, your government announced back in March that you would build 500,000 homes a year. And with that announcement, if you look at the numbers, that means that you would have to build 57 homes per hour per day every year. Are you on track to build 50? Are you currently building 57 homes an hour?
To the member, we are not. Canada is not building at that scale. That is a longer-term goal.
Your government promised that
we're
back in
looking
March.
at over a decade, doubling construction up to that level. But that certainly will take many years to achieve, given the changes that need to be made in the industry. At this point, we don't have the labor force to manufacture at that scale, and that's why Build Canada Homes is focused on the manufacturing side to make the building of housing more efficient.
When is the first year Canada will build 500,000 homes?
Well, the language that we've used is over the next decade. So I think it's reasonable. It's still very aggressive and ambitious to get to 500,000 over the next decade. But that's what we need to scale up to.
I mean, giving yourself that much leeway without any specifics is a little bit misleading. Can you tell us what year would be the first year over the next decade that Canada will see 500,000 homes being built in the year?
The goal is to get to 500,000, to double construction over the next decade. So it's ramping up to that level. That will start to make up the ground of the gap that we have in housing supply as identified by the stats and CMHC research.
Well, your own housing department, CMHC, says that housing starts will decline next year by 4.1%. How do you square that?
Well, that's a projection. We can only work with the facts we have in front of us, which for September were a 14% increase over last year, or that is what we're tracking. Pre-sales are down in some markets, Vancouver and Toronto, as the examples that we're concerned about. And that's why we're pulling out all stops with Build Canada Homes, with measures like this that will get more affordable housing built, that will get home ownership opportunities with new homes that the industry can build. We want to see
Minister, why are sales down?
Sales are, given the global economic conditions right now, I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets, particularly in the
Minister,
big cities.
Are you saying global factors have something to do with Canadian home prices? Like, are you saying that we import our own land and homes?
What I'm saying through the chair is that many buyers are concerned about the current economic circumstances. The tariffs from the U.S. that have been extremely
but home affordability
challenging
was
for
out
the
of
Canadian
control
economy.
before the tariffs hit. Your government was responsible for doubling housing costs in this country before the tariffs hit.
Well, I can speak from experience in my city in Vancouver. We had a housing crisis 20 years ago.
Which has one of the worst records, by the way.
And 20 years ago, that affordable housing crisis was already impacting us, and we saw for 10 years the Harper government do nothing to make housing more affordable in my city, and that
Housing
problem
was
has
half the
proliferated.
cost when the Harper government was in.
And it doubled. In Vancouver, you look at the housing
After
market
you
between
became
2005
mayor, yes.
and 2015.
Well,
there was
housing costs have
dramatic
doubled
rise.
since 2015.
And
Minister, respectfully, your government spent $89 billion on housing, supposedly, to make housing costs come down. Rents and mortgages have doubled since your government spent more than $89 billion. Now your government is creating a fourth bureaucracy after the first three were responsible for doubling housing costs, that made sure that young people lost the dream of home ownership. 9 out of 10 have given up on home ownership. And unless someone has the bank of mom and dad in this country, they don't have enough money for a down payment on this house. If the first 3 bureaucracies failed and you spent more than $89 billion to accomplish all that, what's this 4th bureaucracy going to do?
Through the chair, I am very confident that Build Canada Homes, with an initial $13 billion investment, will be able to make housing more affordable for Canadians. We are
Last 10 years of your government have proven wrong.
Through the chair, I was elected 6 months ago, and so the government that I'm part of now is rolling out this tax measure to save first-time home buyers $50,000.
It's all the same policies, so we don't believe that there's anything new.
This is a new tax measure through the chair to save first-time home buyers $50,000 on a new home.
Okay,
and that will
I have
help
limited time.
with
I'll ask you
affordability.
one last thing. CMHC executives received bonuses every year, even though housing starts decreased. And housing has doubled in this country. Can you confirm if CMHC executives will receive bonuses this year for doubling housing costs?
Brief response.
Through the chair, I can get back to the member with those details. I haven't seen the latest on CMHC bonuses for the year.
Please,
Great,
please.
thank you.
He's really just cooking the books.